Welcome to the Monday evening masterclass. Tonight, we're going to do a talk on how to manage disease or illness. And this is the Ayurvedic approach on how we deal with anybody that comes in with symptoms. And it doesn't matter what it is. Like we were just talking about, not being able to wind down the mind. And what does that mean if you can't wind down the mind? Well, a lot of times if you can't wind down the mind, it means that you've got too much going on and there's too much upward lifting force. So it just goes, and it has to assimilate. It has to assimilate. I was just listening to a really great podcast the other day, and this guy that was on, it was a professor out of London, and he was talking about this school that brought in some monks. And they brought in these monks to these young children, very young, elementary school age. And they taught the children to take 20 minutes in the day to just stop and be still. They didn't teach them how to meditate. They didn't teach them any techniques. They just gave them 20 minutes to just be quiet. So these kids would get 20 minutes every day to just be with themselves, by themselves, quiet, alone. And what they found was that the kids actually started being more playful, being more creative, being more relaxed. Bullying went down, meanness between kids went down. All these like more of aggressive type of behaviors, their occurrences of them went down, because these kids were given an opportunity to be with themselves. And so here's what they said about it. They said it really has to do with the fact that we need time to assimilate. We need time to digest. You have to give time to your body to digest food. That's why you don't go out and exercise right after you eat, because that's going to make you sick. But the same thing happens with your mental body and your emotional body. If you're dealing with a lot and you're having to manage a lot in the mental realm, you got to be able to have some time to just be still with it and let it unwind and let it assimilate. Give it some time to settle so that you can integrate all parts of yourself. Because if we don't do that, what'll happen is then we start getting agitated. We start getting uncomfortable inside of our bodies. We can't sleep. We sometimes start having digestive issues. There's a lot of things that can come up. But we're looking at today how to deal with disease management, dis-ease, right? So I'm not just talking about an actual disease. I'm talking about a symptom that comes up. The first thing that we do in Ayurveda to encourage healing is we identify each person's constitution. When you were born with a specific combination of the elements. When I talk about the elements all the time, ether, air, fire, water, and earth. So you are made up of a combination of those elements. Some people have more air and more ether, and they behave very differently than a person who has a lot more fire and a person who has a lot more earth and water. Right? Think about those elements and how they would show up inside of them. And I always tell everybody, we understand them in the West. We have terms that we use for people. We say, oh, he's intense. She's super, super spunky. Those are all fire element descriptions. Or we'll say, oh, he's super airhead. He's super scattered. Oh, she's just got too much space between her ears kind of thing. That's talking about somebody who has a lot of air and ether. Like, it's not that they're not intelligent individuals. It just means that they literally have more air and ether moving through their system. And then we have people who have a lot more earth and a lot more water. They're going to move slower. They're going to digest things slower, physically, mentally, emotionally, right? They're thicker skinned. And like things happen to them, it just doesn't impact them in the same way. Whereas somebody who's ether and air, things happen to them, They're super sensitive. They're not thick-skinned. They're thin-skinned. And you impact somebody who has a lot of fire, they get all fiery and they go, all right, let's go. You know, they're intense, they're competitive, they're super motivated. So they all behave differently. But when you're born, you have a combination of all those elements. You might be dominant fire. You might be even between the air and the fire. That happens. That's what I am. So the first thing that we do is we find out what's your constitution, like what you were born with. What's your combination? The second thing that we do is we find out what's the imbalance in your body. And that's called your Vikriti. So I want to make sure that when I'm dealing with people, I know what their constitution is. I know what it looks like for them to have balance. However, they've moved around a lot, even though maybe they're an earth sign, right? Maybe they have a lot of earth, not sign, but maybe they have a lot of earth in their constitution. So they move slower, but they're actually dealing with a vata disorder. And this happens a lot because we're overstimulated in our society. So they're working intense hours, they're skipping meals, they're constantly stimulated. They just changed jobs. They just got married. They just had a baby. They just moved. Any change will cause a disruption. And that's called vata. That's called a vata imbalance. When you start having vata imbalances show up. So you start feeling scattered, you start having anxiety, you start feeling overwhelmed. That's a vata imbalance. It may not be your constitution, but you still have to deal with it because it's an imbalance. Okay, so the first thing is we look for your actual constitution, your prakriti. Then we look for your imbalance, your vikriti. The next thing we do is we look at what's the root cause. And we talked about this last week. Ayurveda is always going to look at what's the root cause. Why is this happening in the first place? We look at, is it an illness that's causing it? Is it a hereditary thing that's causing it? Is it a lifestyle thing? Is it diet? Is it emotional? Is it because of relationships? What's the cause? So we look for the root cause. The next thing that we do is we want to remove the cause. That's our first treatment. We want to look at what the cause is and can we treat it? The second thing that we do is we provide a regime. So we want to get a routine going. We want to address diet, exercise, breathing techniques, yoga techniques. We want to look at, how can we help this person depending upon what season it is, what's their age, where do they live, the climate that they live in. All of that matters. So we look at all of that. And then we also look at, is detoxification something that's needed? And if so, then we will help that person go through a detoxification and cleansing technique. We go through that, and then that removes toxins out of the body, helps that person be lighter, helps things move better. Then we look at rejuvenation. How can we help this person rejuvenate and build their immune system so that they are strong? And when you're strong, when we do that, then what happens is you start moving through the world in a way where you understand, this is my constitution. So once we've got everything back into balance, you're really dealing with your prakriti, which is the constitution that you were born with. And if you are more dominant pitta, fire, then that means that you have to adjust things differently in the summertime because it's hot, climate's different. And then wintertime comes and you change your diet, adjust it, adjust your routine. So things have to be adjusted for the seasons, for the climate, for where you live, and for whatever you're dealing with for your dosha, your constitution. That's what your dosha is. And also if an imbalance shows up. So that is how we manage it. And like I told you guys last week, it's a process. You don't just do this overnight. It takes time. But honestly, I have seen people go from years and years and years and years of an imbalance, and they turn it around in a few months. So it's definitely possible, completely possible. I had a situation in my life where I got very, very ill and almost died. And I was told that there was a good chance that after that, I would probably die within a couple of years from cancer or something like that, because my body had gotten so weak from sepsis that usually people die soon after that from cancer or things like that, because your system gets weak. But that's not what happened to me, because I rejuvenated, because I really paid attention to my diet and I implemented all of the disease management practices. And I still have to do that to this day. I still have to pay attention to how much sleep I'm getting, how much, quiet time I'm getting. And I always know too, by the way, if my mind can't settle, I always know I'm not getting enough meditation. I'm not getting enough quiet time, just being still. Take a walk. Don't listen to music. Take a walk and just be with yourself. Just listen to your own breath. Feel your steps. Feel your arms. Feel your body. Connect with your body, with your cells. Right there. Remember, every single cell inside of you has consciousness. Connect with it. We are so disconnected because of how our corporate America is. We are just forced up into this part of the body, into the head. And you got to bring all that energy back down and reconnect with your body. That's why physical exercise is so beneficial. Like, even if you're not doing yoga, if you just go out and do a walk, it's going to help you so much, because now you're going into your body. But I would tell you, don't create more distractions by listening to music. Be still, be silent, let it unravel. There is sometimes discomfort in that, and that's okay. You're letting that come to the surface so it can leave that discomfort, instead of holding it inside of you and having to wrestle with it in the middle of the night with insomnia. Anyway, so if you have any questions on any of that, please reach out to me. That's disease management, for how Ayurveda deals with it. Okay, let's get started with our practice tonight.